From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The U.S. and Japan jumping on board bilateral trade talks, and auto is on the hook.
The U.S. has pledged that they will not impose auto tariffs on Japan.
The Farm Bill frenzy continues as nearly 40 programs fear they'll see funding end on Monday. In agribusiness, the global trading game is changing, but one thing remains.
But North America collectively is pristinely positioned to be the quality and ultra-high quality product provider to the world.
Tips on fall tillage and taking a ride in the Jello Neck Juggernaut, the combine pacifier on Farm Sense.
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. As trade tensions get worse between the U.S. and China, the Trump administration continues pressing for deals in other countries. President Trump announcing new bilateral trade talks between the U.S. and Japan. The U.S. continuing to push for increasing automobile access in Japan, hoping to encourage more production and jobs in America. Now, on the farm side, sales and access to Japan are likely to be limited to those recently proposed provisions similar in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a multilateral trade deal the president pulled out of in the early days of taking office. Now, President Trump says this new announcement is proof his administration believes in trade.
They're starting trade talks with Japan. They were not willing for years to talk trade, and now they're willing to talk trade, and I'm sure we'll make a very good deal. Just concluded, as you know, 2 days ago, signed a deal with South Korea, trade deal, tremendous deal with South Korea. It means a lot of business for our farmers. We're opening up for farmers. We're opening up for a lot of different groups. We're going to be able to sell much more than double the number of automobiles that we were allowed under a deal that was totally defective, that was there before. And so we're very happy with that. That deal is actually concluded. We're very well along the way with Mexico.
U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer saying these new talks with Japan will likely happen in 2 phases. He's hoping to get a full free trade deal finished and through Congress using fast-track trade promotion authority. Now, that law requires Congress to be notified 90 days before negotiations can begin.
The U.S. has pledged that they will not impose auto tariffs on Japan while these talks continue. Now, we've heard that before, so we'll see. When it comes to agriculture, Japan has made clear that they will provide no further market access above and beyond what they previously granted the U.S. and other nations in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And that's similar to what they did in a bilateral agreement earlier this year with Europe.
Wiesmeyer telling AgDay the bottom line is a bilateral deal with Japan would still be good news, as it would still create additional market access outside of agriculture. Now, that trade pact with Japan could significantly reduce tariffs and boost imports of beef, pork, and wheat. The U.S. Wheat Association's releasing a statement saying, "We appreciate the emphasis on free, fair, and rules-based trade. These negotiations are a positive sign that the United States is again moving toward a comprehensive agreement with Japan and hopefully with other countries in the Pacific region and around the world." Now, Japan currently relies on the U.S. for half of its wheat imports, but Japan is set to cut tariffs on wheat from Australia and Canada under the newly agreed to CPTPP. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association also weighing in, saying, quote, "Today's announcement is exciting news for America's beef producers because Japan is our top export market, accounting for nearly $1.9 billion in U.S. beef sales in 2017. NCBA saying U.S. beef faces a 38.5% tariff in Japan, and they hope these new negotiations will help lower that trade barrier. It may be positive news with Japan, but it's the opposite when it comes to working through trade differences with China. President Trump turning up the heat on China, now accusing the country of meddling in the upcoming midterm elections. He made the accusations at a special meeting in New York during an 80-minute press conference. However, details to back up those claims are absent.
What evidence do you have of that, sir? Is there a national
We have
intelligence
evidence.
estimate,
We have
for example,
evidence.
that you're
It'll come
prepared to
out.
put forward?
Yeah, I can't tell you now, but it didn't come out of nowhere, that I can tell you. Now,
Why make the charge
they've
now?
actually admitted that they're going after farmers.
He says China doesn't want him to win an election because he's the first president to ever challenge China on trade. Now, China's foreign minister responding by refuting what he called unwarranted accusations against China, even calling the claims slander. Other trade experts and former negotiators say longer term, these trade tensions have the potential to change the way the world moves its exports.
But more concerning to me are changes in investment and production decisions that may flow from the current trade tensions with China. So Brazil has every incentive now to add soybean acres, knowing that their beans are now trading at a premium into Brazil into China rather, because ours are hit with tariffs. Similarly, we've seen companies like the Mash-Offs, the largest hog producer in the United States, say that their investment dollars will probably go to build facilities in Eastern Europe or Latin America because they know that they'll be able to export their product to more places if they build there. So even if those trade tensions with China are to end tomorrow, what we know is that we'll now be competing with more facilities in other countries and more acres in countries like Brazil.
Meanwhile, it could be as soon as today that the U.S. moves forward on a trade agreement with Mexico that doesn't include Canada. The president telling reporters at the United Nations this week that the U.S. is very unhappy with negotiations and the negotiating style of Canada, adding that they don't like their representative very much, an apparent reference to Canadian Foreign Minister Chrystia Freeland. The two sides have been locked in a tight negotiation for several weeks, trying to come to terms on tariffs and market access. Now, the administration is set to publish the text of the deal with Mexico today, leaving open the possibility for Canada to join the agreement later. Today is the last working day before the Farm Bill deadline hits, and as the clock runs out, there are 39 programs that will see funding lapse, even with an extension. That includes Foreign Market Development, a program that funds organizations like the U.S. Grains Council. Because those programs don't have baseline funding, no money would be appropriated in an extension. Now, a spokesperson with the House Ag Committee telling us the only thing that will help those programs is getting a farm bill done. Washington insiders think we're likely to see a new bill after the elections. Regardless of what's happening in Washington, the crop is coming in. Let's check on progress in today's crop comments with meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Jenny Schweigert from Illinois sent this picture to us via Twitter. Her son is waiting on a ride in the combine during corn harvest. 85% of the state's corn is now mature. That's nearly 20 points ahead of the 5-year average. USDA says this week 79% of the crop is rated good to excellent in the state of Illinois. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, going to be a little breezy in the Central Plains, Western Great Lakes as we start the day today. That'll move into the Eastern Great Lakes and down into Kansas and parts of Oklahoma, panhandle of Texas later on today. Heading into the day tomorrow, not a lot of wind to start, but as we head through the rest of the afternoon, a lot of places out west turn a little bit breezy. We'll have your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Ag Day, brought to you by Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers. They don't just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize it, so crops deliver the max in return. Learn more at maxinmaxout.com.
As the trade game plays out, global demand is shifting. We'll have more from the livestock sector in analysis, and later fall tillage season is on its way. We'll have tips in today's Farm Journal College TV. Agribusiness Thursday turned out to be a mixed day at the CME. Let's head now to the floor for details.
We have seen corn get a nice relief rally here over the last week, now pressing up against significant technical resistance. For the pocket, we're looking at 366 to 369.5 is going to be pivotal as we look to round out the week. Now, moving over to the soybeans, same type of story. We're kind of up here against the top end of recent resistance. 863 to 870 is the 50-day moving average, as well as a key retracement on the year. If the bulls cannot chew through here, I think that we start to see sellers step back in at a better price. We have had some friendly export news over the past week with exports Mexico and some news regarding Argentina, so that is a little bit of a silver lining. If that becomes more of a trend, perhaps the bulls have a little bit more of a hope over the intermediate term, but for right now the bears are still in control from the technical standpoint. This has been Oliver Slope with Blue Line Futures from the floor of the CME.
With all of the trade turmoil, exports remain an important part of the picture for red meat producers. Tyne Morgan asks how that global demand is shaping up in today's analysis from the road.
Here now with Don Close of Rabo AgriFinance. Don, to look at the global market and to look at global demand, things are shifting, things are changing, but overall, for red meat specifically, has global demand been good?
It's been beyond good. And if you look at just how muddy and just how much noise is in the market, all the U.S. trade issues going on, if you look at the animal health issues, but in China, Eastern Europe, demand for protein globally has just been phenomenal. Certainly the growth in monthly U.S. exports in that 12 to spiking at 15% above a year ago. It is absolutely the day of the international market.
But as you see the dynamics globally changed, is the U.S. still the preferred source?
That's the best question. And I think U.S., but North America collectively is pristinely positioned to be the quality and ultra high quality product provider to the world. And as more beef is consumed, specifically in China, but throughout Asia, I just see the opportunity for U.S. beef to be a bigger share of that global trade. I think we're ideally positioned.
But when you look at Brazil and some of these other countries, does it worry you? Does it worry you that, like when you see soybeans, how really demand has changed? Do you think there are other countries that are coming up that are able to compete with the U.S.?
I think they're able to compete on a quantity, but one of the topics that comes up with our international conversations within the bank is so many people view beef as a completely fungible product, and it is not. That all beef is not created equal. Is there a marketplace for those more commodity products? Absolutely there is, and I'm not talking derogatory on that at all. But do the other countries, if you look at Brazil, you look at the mix of product coming from Australia, what opportunities would there be in Argentina? North America is the supplier of the ultra high quality product.
All right, Don Close, thank you so much. Let's take a quick break right here on Ag Day, and then we'll have much more.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman here looking at the drought monitor. And Mike, you can see where we've seen some few improvements, and right there in the middle of the country, it seems like it's kind of slowly eating away at that dry.
Exactly. You can just kind of see that happen over the past month. Still pretty dry out west, and especially even in the Pacific Northwest. But you can see as we go back 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, there was a lot more red and orange through the central portions of the plains. But that has definitely been eaten away over the last month or so across the middle of the country. But we have gotten just a little bit drier over the last month or so, parts of North Dakota, a few spots in South Dakota, and then especially Oregon, some of the surrounding areas, and the far southwest, Southern California. I mean, it's typically dry in those areas, and you get more moisture as we head through the winter than you do this time of the year. But here's the maps. You can see a couple of fronts. One's going to be stalling out through the southeastern part of the country, still causing some rain in the northeast, though. Secondary front has some showers behind it. Really very little moisture out ahead of it because this thing's kind of cutting off the Gulf of Mexico moisture. But you can see as we head through the afternoon hours, some scattered showers from the Great Lakes back into Kansas, widely scattered. None of these are very heavy. Same idea as we head into a Saturday morning. Not a lot of moisture across the country. We do actually see a system, though, coming into the west coast. Not a powerful one, but nonetheless one as we head through the middle of the weekend. And we're starting to see some moisture from a tropical system coming northward. That could actually come into the southwest later or sometime next week. There's a precipitation estimate over the past 24 hours. You can see the moisture in the mid-Atlantic, scattered amounts down into the southern Mississippi Valley. Adding in the next 36 hours, we really don't add any areas of heavy rain. But we do add some spotty activity close to the Gulf Coast, kind of in the southeast, and just a little bit of hit and miss stuff across the north central plains into the Great Lakes with that secondary front that's coming in. Temperatures this afternoon still hot in the far southwest, triple digits still in some spots, but look at the highs in the northern plains, only 40s and 50s there. Low temperatures tonight going to drop off into the mid-30s. This is our first decent chance for frost across the far northern plains. 50s Ohio Valley, 70s by the time you get to the Gulf Coast. And highs tomorrow still warm in the southeast, but these are pretty cool numbers for this time of the year. Highs only in the 40s and lower 50s across the northern tier of states, all because of this pretty strong trough bringing air directly off the Arctic Circle. That gets cut off pretty quickly as we head into next week. We go zonal with some moisture coming in out west with that trough, and we have a trough in the west, ridge in the east by the end of the week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We head to Twin Falls, Idaho. First of all, mostly sunny, pleasantly warm, high of 81. McPherson, Kansas, partly sunny and cooler, high around 65. And finally, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, comfortable, clouds and some sunshine, high of 71.
Up next, breaking down fall tillage in the field with Farm Journal field agronomist Missy Bauer, and later, a little farm sense perspective on the lullaby sounds of harvest. Once the crop comes off, fall tillage can begin, and getting ready for fall field work is today's Farm Journal College TV.
Yeah, this is really, really important to ensure that your tillage tool is running properly. These are going to be checks that we need to do actually in the field.
Okay.
So first, when we head to the field with that tillage tool, the first thing I want to do is make sure that it's running level.
Okay.
What I mean by level is front to back. Is the hitch tipped down or is it tipped up? If that tool's not running level, it's not going to work as it's designed.
All right.
So the best way to do that is get out there, drop the tool in the ground, get going at the speed that you normally would run it at, and then have someone watch as you go by.
Okay,
and just,
so you want to do it while you're actually doing some tillage, not sitting out, outside of the ground or stopped.
Right, because as we pull that through, it's going to have some force or drag on it, pulling it down. So it's very important to do this as it's in the ground, running at the depth that you think you're going to want to run at, and just watch. How is that main toolbar? Are we tipped forward or are we pretty level? So it's that front to back aspect that we're looking at as the tool goes by, and then we're going to make those adjustments as needed.
Okay, what else after the tool goes through? Obviously, there's some checks you want to do to see how it's working.
Yeah, once I know the tool's running level, then I need to do some depth checks. So we find that a lot of farmers make errors in checking the depth because they measure what I call up to the top of the fluff instead of the actual ground level of where the tool had ran. So what I like to do is take a yardstick, go ahead and push down where a shank has ran, down till you feel the bottom of where that shank has been run.
Okay.
Then I take a rod and come in from the side here, and I actually see from the side, laying this out flat here on the ground where we have not ran any tools at all, and then bring it over here and see where this has actually been run. You want to make sure you're definitely down into the bottom of your trench all the way, so you can kind of feel that there. And you can see that laying this now on flat surface, I've actually had to push this soil out of the way because the fluff kind of comes up to here. So you can see this was ran at about 8.5 inches deep.
Okay.
So that's a good way to know what your depth actually is.
All right, thanks, Missy. Up next, the soothing sounds of harvest and a perfectly peaceful nap. Farm Sense after the break.
In the Country, brought to you by Kubota's M7060, built to get the job done. See KubotaUSA.com or your local Kubota dealer for more information.
I don't think there's a business with more anticipation and more energy than agriculture once farmers begin bringing in the harvest. It's just plain fun. A lot of work, but pulling the combine into the field, watching those first few rows tick across the yield monitor is a memorable and rewarding moment each and every year. You know what apparently is not fun? Riding in the jump seat. Now hold on. Let's see my proof. All right, here. Picture after picture after picture flowing across Twitter of kids passed out with the slump over sleepies, the harvest time hangover, the knockout nap. I'm not sure what it is about cab time that gives it the same powers as the Sunday morning pew or Wednesday afternoon college lecture. But something about the quiet hum of the header, the swish of grain filling the hopper, and the warmth of the sun streaming in through dust-covered windows makes the combine the absolute best sleeping spot in the entire universe. No matter how much sugar, toys, books, or tablets you send up the ladder, the end result always seems to be a serious case of cabcolepsy by the time you hit that second end row. Now maybe this secretly comes in the Combine Handbook, a page for parents. Sit your kids down and simply enjoy an hour or two of quiet for mom and dad during what's always the busiest time of year. But it's also the perfect reminder of why you're out there at all hours of the day and night bringing in the harvest. That grain filling up the window behind you is that little one's future. It will not only feed your family, but hundreds around the world. So while you may wish for more conversation, more questions, more time together, take a moment to appreciate the gift bundled up at your feet. One of these days, those little moments will be scattered in the winds of life, and you'll ache for someone to come take a ride. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in, spend part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great harvest.